war on women. And that was kind of clunky, and we, it sounded a little angry, and we didn't want to be angry, so we decided that we call what women want. But with that being said, I would love to just open it up, and we can start with you, Candy. A lot of people do talk about a war on women. And in some cases, there may be, there may not be. I don't know. I would love to hear what you women think about the fact and fiction around the war on women.
Well, they talk about this. There's some statistics out there where they compare traditional female jobs and traditional male jobs. And traditionally, most of our jobs were in support positions. Lately, it's been more that we're more equal. But if you look at the average wages and you compare the two, when you've got women who are traditionally in support positions compared with guys who are usually in the executive positions, of course it's going to look skewed. But I was looking at some statistics on Trump and how a couple decades ago, even when 40% of the workforce was women, he had over 50% of his executives as women. So it goes to show you he was kind of forward thinking from the beginning. He just felt if you found a woman that could do the job, usually she was better at it than most men because she wouldn't be there. Because that's what you had to do, to get the job. So anyway, from that, but I think more so these days, and when you look at people like Carly, that woman just fought her way to the top. Yeah. Talk about another role model. People like her, there's so many women who have broken through the barriers now that I'm not so sure that it's such a war on women anymore. Because if you're willing to put forth the effort, and you look at the colleges now, I think it's more than 60% of most colleges are women. So they are getting those jobs, which are the higher paying jobs now, and they are cracking and CEOs around the country and around the world. So you're seeing more of that. I mean, I think of just one example, this woman who was a VP at Hopkins Hospital. She was homeless when she was a child, and some mentors took her under wing when she was in high school. She's a minority, and she got to be one of the vice presidents at Johns Hopkins Hospital. But she's a farmer, so she was going to go, and try to become president. She realized our president was a little young, so he probably wouldn't be retiring anytime soon. She's now president of a hospital in Dubai. So I'm not so sure that the inequities are as inequitable as they used to be.
I was going to say that for fiction, I think one of the major points I've learned from being out on the campaign trail is the idea that women only care about women's issues when it comes to an election. Whenever I talk to many female voters, they say their major concerns are the same issues: the economy, national security, immigration, education, the same issues that men have and feel are important. So I think that's something that's extremely important. We talked about on Friday, actually, I did an interview with Candy, and she was saying, we're not just a block, and that's the frustrating part. I remember being at a press conference during the primary, and I think it was possibly a left-minded reporter because of the way the question was phrased, but they asked a candidate, how are you going to be able to sell your platform when you're against women's rights to choose? And I thought that's something that's very interesting because it's always painting Republicans to be against abortion or against a woman's rights. And I think that that's something that, it's our responsibility to make sure that everything's reported there, and why not put that a positive spin on that Republicans' platform, is for life or for pro-woman, health is a major issue in that aspect. And so I just think that that's one of the biggest fictions. Last time I checked, women go to the ballot box to vote with their brains, not their lady parts. So that's probably the big thing I think of.
So we remember that this narrative was created a couple of election cycles ago, and it's getting tired at this point. But from my perspective, we deal with religious freedom around the world, and we deal with foreign policy, and I am offended that we would somehow equate the idea that the Little Sisters of the Poor don't want to pay for Sandra Fluke's birth control with the fact that ISIS rapes, abuses, and sells women in the open market. That is the real war on women. Anything that somehow equates those two things. So that's my first point. My second point is that to go to Candy's point, you're right. You know, the statistics are, we are, at this time in history, women have more opportunity than we've ever had anywhere in the world at any other time. Within the last generation, women at every point in the economic ladder make 50% more than our mothers did. And I am a direct product of that. I come from a family, my grandmother had 9 children, worked in a factory, and helped provide for those kids. My mother dropped out of school as a 16-year-old and married my father, then she got her GED, and then she went to community college, and every woman did a little better than the one before her. And then I'm a preacher's kid. I come from Appalachia, and here I am with Candy Carson, Dr. Carson, Alex Sawyer. What an amazing country we live in. We have so much opportunity, and I'm so grateful to have been born here at this time. And women are finding, just to the final point, to your point, Candy, women are gaining over half of the college degrees are going to women. The majority of law degrees are going to women. Almost the majority of medical school degrees, Dr. Carson, are now going to women. We have gained so much. Now, we are not at, to be fair, we're not at 50% parity as CEOs and maybe those top dean jobs in universities. But what I would say is there's this little interesting fact that in our 20s, we actually make more money than men. But something changes along the way, and that is often children. And we off-ramp, usually because we want to. If you look at the statistics, usually it's a chosen opportunity because we love our children. And when they're little, and I did that, you know, and you probably did too, we spent years. And so it's very difficult. You can't just on-ramp exactly where you left off. And so there's a time of kind of gaining back what you lost this time. If we really want to help women, we've got to make efforts that allow them job sharing, allow them more flexibility in the workplace so that we can have the kind of lives that we want to have. If you ask women what they'd like, most mothers say their ideal job would be a part-time job. So let's open more opportunities for women to have the kind of life they want, or even the single one that want to travel or want to have more, because on your deathbed, do you rarely say, man, I wish I'd worked more? Mm-hmm. You don't say that. You say, I wish I'd been with my family more. I wish I'd done this and that. So, that's one.
Thank you. Thank you. Next question. You know, if we look at mainstream media, they would have us believe that most women think with one mind and are in fact not conservative. What do we as conservative, first of all, is that true? And what do we as conservative women, what is our responsibility to share our message with other women, and how do we do that when the mainstream media and the world is telling us that women are not conservative? Let's start out.
Okay. Well, clearly that's not true. And as a conservative woman and head of the nation's largest public policy women's organization, I've met women from all over this country. And I've met women that are our members who are certainly very right of center, but even if you don't completely agree with us on every point, I've written a book recently called Feisty and Feminine, a Rallying Cry for Conservative Women. And I've had this interesting experience where I've had liberal book reviewers say, and I've read what they've written, they said, well, I read it expecting to hate it. And some of it I did. But there were some points where I completely agreed with her. And so we're not monolithic. Clearly we're not. And we're 53% of the population. We're not a little small group. We're the majority of Americans, and we're the majority of general election voters. I think it is really important that we find our voice. The Republican Party needs certainly to do a better job to be aspirational and talk about the very things that we've talked about today, about opportunity. We need to talk about educational opportunity. I love what you all are doing. Women that are even stuck in a situation they don't like, they want to hear that there's better for their kids. And we need to give them opportunity for any kind of education, whether it's private school vouchers or whether it's charter school or whatever it is. No one should be stuck in a failing school in this country. We can do better. There's market forces that can come to work on this. But clearly we are not monolithic, and I'm grateful that we live in a country where we can discuss those differences sometimes in a spirited way. But I think as conservative women, we need to equip ourselves, and that was really the point of my book, to equip ourselves to lean into the conversation. We should never be stuck looking at our shoes when a controversial subject comes up because we don't know what to say, or worse yet, we're afraid to say it. We have to be ready. We need to be eager. We need to be ready to bring people winsomely to our side, because we have the truth on our side. We have, my views are based on a biblical worldview. And even though I would never quote scripture to someone who doesn't come from a perspective of faith, because scripture's true, I have all sorts of other evidence that I can point to, whether it's social science or, anything. So, I think we got a lot to do, but we are ready to do it.
On the subject of the media painting, women's issues and turning it to that all women identify with being liberal, I think that there's two things that come to mind. Having gone through journalism school, I did have a professor in a class that had us raise our hand if we voted for Obama in 2008. And those of us, and you didn't have to participate. I did not participate. But he ended up saying, Alex, we know you're from Texas, we know how you voted. And so I would say there was more liberals or Democrats in my class. My classmates, it was not proportionate, and that's one of those things that they try to say, the media tries to say, well, it's not true, that's not true, it's not all liberal bias. But there is a slant, if you're raised to think a certain way. And so I definitely think that that's something the media needs to address. I think that I'm not a history major, but I did interview a woman who wrote for Cosmopolitan. She's in her 70s now. She wrote for Cosmopolitan magazine and covered the, women's rights movement. You might know more, having talked to Dr. LaHaye about this, but she was saying how it started with women wanting equal rights in the workplace and those types of issues. And unfortunately, there was, I think, a small group of women, but that small group ended up being allowed their voice, that took that movement over with the sexual revolution. And so I think oftentimes, the sexual revolution, women's issues in terms of reproduction, that ends up masking the bigger issues, as Penny was mentioning, about women being able to have children and still be able to enjoy a job and be, equal pay, that sort of thing. So I think that that's something that the media has a responsibility to shed light on and make sure it's done in a fair way.
Thank you for sharing so much. I really appreciate your perspective, and I think we all are. And to piggyback on what you were saying too about educating people, it's really sad that so many of our young women have their education cut short. There's a problem with self-esteem in this country. There's so much bullying, and fortunately for me, I get to go to schools and see how some of the schools are addressing that, and it's wonderful to see them working on that. But I think all of us have fear of influence. If you can, in your sphere of influence, work with an organization that helps these young ladies, because so many of them they have no self-esteem. They've been beat down in so many different ways, and it's sad that too many, when you have children having children and they don't realize that it's not good to tell that kid that they're bad when they've done something bad. You've done something that's bad. You're not bad. But so many of them internalize that, so they're feeling like they don't have any worth. These young ladies need to know that, and a lot of them aren't getting it in church because so many people are too busy trying to find a job or trying to work. There's all of these things in our society right now, because there has been a movement to look at Saul Alinsky, and Hillary is a student of Saul Alinsky. Her thesis was on him. He's a guy who wrote a book called Rules for Radicals, which is about changing the democratic society. to a socialist one. And the first of his list of things, things to do is to get control of healthcare. Another one is to take God out of the country, because if you have people who have a strong faith, it's harder to take over a country. So that one, and then let's see, there's a whole list. I mean, no, it's a small book. It doesn't take long. But the thing it is, you've got to break up the family. So those kinds of things we've been doing with some of our programs. Although welfare is a wonderful program, some of the stipulations they have, like the father can't be there to help, it's again breaking up the family and dividing people. And so we've got to help, for one thing, these young ladies to understand that they can achieve. Help them to understand that you can go to school. There are places, and there are programs that can really help them. But so much of it's just that they don't have the information. So if we can help in some of these neighborhood programs, things that are not far away from you, to help them understand, we can do something. And one of the programs my husband had, one of the things he was thinking of doing to help with this was to have ways to encourage some of these programs, but to get the ladies so that they could have childcare, so that they could go back to school. And go back to school. There are programs already where they can go from the community organization, the community schools. So colleges, there's so much that's there that they don't understand and they don't know. So when you've got a teenager that's been beaten down, so wherever you can, please do that, because there, in a way, there is some equality there too, because our bodies are made a certain way, and people are told they're not worth anything, and then some guy comes along and says, "Oh, I love you." And then, so yes, we ourselves need to get out there and help them to understand that they can.
Very good. Okay. Almost 20 years ago now, I was a film student. I got my MFA not far from here, Athens, Ohio, and all of my friends were so excited that Hillary Clinton was coming to campus, and it was a 3-year program. This was the second year, and no one knew that I was Republican, that I was a conservative. So everybody was like, "Let's go see Hillary Clinton." And so I actually came out of the closet. In high school, most people do, but I came out of the closet as a film student at OU and said, "I'm not going to see Hillary. I don't really get to, but y'all go ahead and do that thing, okay?" And so, but we have to recognize that this is a historic moment in that she is the first woman to lead the ticket on a major party. And, but I also grew up watching socialism every Saturday morning, and the only place that socialism works is in Smurf Village. We love the Smurfs, and it works well. If Papa Smurf were the president, we might be able to make this socialism thing work, but that's really the only place where we've seen it work. That being said, the Republican nominee and the Democratic nominee, it's a very close race in some very important states, and a lot of it is related to Hillary's untrustworthiness. So why? And these are numbers that are low among women. Why are women having problems with her? And but we also have to be completely open and honest and recognize that women are also having a problem with our candidate. Assuming that we're Republican and conservatives, but so women are having a problem with Trump. So what needs to happen, and how does Trump do a better job of messaging to women and not just talking to women, but making sure that women understand that he is okay?
I wanted to start with the fact that I think part of the problem is, I lost my train of thought. I hate that, but the thing what's nice is when you get to be my age, you got an excuse. What you were saying at the beginning, you say at the beginning. Oh, why? Think about those soldiers in the country. How many of us are mothers, or sisters, or wives? When I heard her say, what a difference does it make? That did it for me. I'm like, one of our own is gonna let our, they're fight. He knew someone was coming. They knew, those guys knew someone's gonna come, because that's what Americans do. From the time, excuse me, from the time our company started, if someone fell off a ladder and couldn't get their crops in, the others went, their neighbors went and helped. They didn't. That's what we were like. As Americans, we always had to leave them out there. They knew something was coming. I'm sorry, I'll give this.
I'll continue that, and I'll point to not just with issues like Benghazi, but the email scandal. You know, I think there's just, Hillary Clinton does have a record of dishonesty and hypocrisy. And I think that, you know, as a millennial, a female, I think that, you know, my generation hasn't grown up with there being somewhat of limits in terms of females growing up probably like, you know, my mom's generation. And so when we look at it, we don't think, oh, you know, there has to be a woman president. Like, we have to break this next barrier. Like, it's not as, I guess, impending on us as someone who's older that sees how far women have come, that see that that's an accomplishment that must happen in their lifetime. So I think that's an aspect for young women, but more importantly, we feature truth, and I think that's why you saw a lot of young women supporting Bernie Sanders if they were part of the Democratic Party than Hillary Clinton, is because of he was more trustworthy. He didn't seem to be viewed as part of the establishment. I know Hillary Clinton said that she's not part of the establishment because she's a woman, and that makes you, you know, outside of the establishment. But I think it's pretty hard to get away when your last name's Clinton from being part of Washington, D.C. insiders. So I think there's just so many issues. I will point to one that I thought was really interesting, and I wrote about after I was reading Clinton Cash, which is a book by Peter Schweitzer, who's an editor-at-large at Breitbart.com. And as a journalist, I will say he wrote this book, and it's probably one of the best pieces of investigative journalism I've ever seen. And I'm sure you could write them on many politicians, but I think it's definitely worth reading on the Clintons. One example, I think it was maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump was doing a campaign rally, and he said something about Saddam Hussein doing a good job at killing terrorists. Well, Hillary Clinton tweeted something and ran with, you know, Donald Trump praising Saddam Hussein or a dictator. And if you read Clinton Cash, there's throughout every chapter, it's very interesting to see who the Clinton Foundation was dealing with. It was mostly dictators, and they also honored them and would fly them to New York City and host them at their galas, their Clinton Foundation galas, and give them awards. And these are places that have human rights violations, that imprison journalists, and women don't have rights. They can't drive, they can't vote. I think it's very hypocritical, and I think that's what's speaking to my generation when they hear that says, you know, if you need to practice what you preach. And so I think that's, at least for the young women, I think that's why she's having a large issue with her trustworthiness.
Yes, to the point that during the primary, earlier in the primary, when Madeleine Albright suggested that there was a special place in hell, and I know she's a powerful woman, but come on, that the women who did not support Hillary Clinton, she got so much pushback from women who were Bernie Sanders supporters. They're like, wait a minute, somehow we're gender betrayers because we refused to vote for Hillary Clinton. And I made that same point. I was on a panel, much like this, except it was all people on the left and me for PBS. And it was very interesting that this point came up, that, you know, if she's a woman, we're women, do we have to vote for Hillary Clinton? This is just absolutely ludicrous. Of course not. We should be voting not just on something, just gender or anything else. We should be picking the best leader for our country. And clearly the left and right agree on that point. And so, and I kind of lost my train of thought too, but the bottom line is, we can't play. Our nation is at a crossroads, we're at a tipping point. And regardless of, gender or anything else, we have to have a leader who's gonna help us move forward as a nation, who will deal with the issue of national security. We feel a little bit, I felt like, especially this past week, the country's gone a little mad. We are turning, sister against sister and brother against brother, and we've got to stop it. We've got to understand that we're all made in God's image and after His likeness. And we have to have respect and love and dignity for each other. And that is, I think, a crucial message that our leaders need to give on both sides. And as women, I think we have to clearly vote not just with our hearts, but with our brains. And I think we're going to do that. And I just say one last point, Dina. I was looking at some polling data, and I realized both candidates clearly are having a problem with women. And in April, some of the data showed that Hillary Clinton was 2 points lower with women than she was with men. So she's not going to get a free pass with this.
And keep in mind, like she was saying, we really are addressing this. $19 trillion it comes from kicking the can down the road for decades, almost Democrats and Republicans. And to pay that off, a lot of people don't know this, but I mean, if you do the math, and a lot of people don't have time to do the math, but think about it. To pay that off the rate of $10 million every day, every single day, $10 million, which would be 5,000. It's that there, and that doesn't take into consideration the unfunded liabilities. And when you compare those with incoming revenue sources, there's a fiscal gap if you're not fiscally responsible, and we haven't been. So when you compare those unfunded liabilities like Medicare, Medicaid, other government programs with incoming tax resources as well as other revenue sources, we're at over $211 trillion. $211 trillion. You can say it rolls off the tongue, but man, that's just, you cannot kick this can down the road. When they've been doing it for decades, oh yeah, we can just keep doing it. No, you cannot. We have to get the right person in there this time. We've got to get a business person who knows how to take care, to utilize our resources. We have $150 trillion in assets that we're not using the way we should. We have 900,000 buildings, government-owned buildings. 77,000 of them, 77,000 are either underutilized or not utilized at all. Come on, let's rent the space. Hello, I mean, there's a lot of things we could do if we would think logically, and so far that seems to be something that's missing in Washington, D.C. logic, because they have all of these onerous rules. I mean, last year, was it 80,000 pages? 81,000 pages of legislation that are regulations that are putting their boot heel on the necks of entrepreneurs. And small businesses can't survive with all of that. So, I mean, let's get our entrepreneurial spirit back. Let's put some things in place like the $2.1 trillion that's held offshore, because American companies that are fiscally responsible can't bring it back. I mean, we got the highest corporate tax rate, 35%, so you can't bring it back here. So you have to keep it offshore, have a tax holiday. 6 months tax holiday, have them bring the money back with the stipulation that 10%, but only 10%, would be used to create new upwardly mobile jobs for underemployed, and those that are on welfare. So these kinds of programs, once you put them in place, the people have their dignity back. Think about that. And run this place like a business, because this is, there is a fiduciary responsibility for the American money, for all the stuff we put in, like our hard-earned money, instead of just throwing it here and there and so on and so forth. I mean, when Ben, were you acting as an expert witness for government? Yeah. Okay. Yes. And they said, well, you can charge whatever you want. Really? Of course, he couldn't do that, but they can just charge whatever you want, because this is free money. Yeah. And you hear about some of the other officials that go on take trips to Vegas and do things and so on and so forth, and they're just, we need to hold these people accountable.
Okay, one last question for you ladies. We've been talking about general, and obviously this is a panel about what women want. Well, we understand that not one woman speaks for all women. So what I'd like to know is, what do you want as a woman, and what do you want for this country, and also, what are you doing to make it happen?
I can thankfully say for myself, I have what I want. I have a sweet family and a good husband and sweet children and faith in Jesus and a great country. What I want for this country and for other women is the same opportunity that my family's enjoyed. I don't want anyone trapped in an inner city school that's failing their kids. I want school choice. I want the protection of human life. I believe that we have got to, and again, this goes back to women not being violent. You may not agree with me on the issue of abortion. You may not agree that life begins at conception, but I think most of us can agree there's a problem with $500 million a year going to fund the nation's largest abortion provider. And I will not rest until that changes. I think it is essential. We cannot roll back and just even have common sense laws in place that are more in line with public opinion until we stop funneling government money to them. And if what they're doing is so great, then I welcome Silveridges to go raise money just like I do. Our average is $27 a person. It's really hard to raise money. Man, if I had $500 million a year in government money, what could I do, you know? It'd rule the world. But I'm not asking for that because I think it's inappropriate. I think that we should raise our own money from our people that agree with us, and I welcome them to do that as well. So for me, I think just to sum up, I think it's essential that we think forward, that we protect our nation, that we help our kids that are stuck in poverty, and that we protect the least of these.
I mentioned in the beginning that I just got engaged, so what I would want is, looking forward to the next chapter of my life and starting a family, is that my children can grow up in a society where people respect the First Amendment and respect each other's opinion. I think that all too often what we're seeing in our society right now, instead of using voices, we're using violence and breaking the law. I think that that's something I would really like to see in the law, and responsibility that starts with the family, that starts with raising to respect one another, and it continues on through the schools and into our work life. So, I would like to see that I guess manners and the respect for the First Amendment restored. And as a journalist, I would like to be able to see and hear from more voices on each side. One of the things I think, Dina, when we talked, you mentioned how can women, maybe address this issue with the Black Lives Matter protests and the issue with the cops. I think that one of the traits that women have is we are good communicators, and maybe some of our spouses and soon-to-be spouses think we communicate too much sometimes. But I think that's one of our strengths, and I think if we're able to come together and speak about the problems and actually reach a solution, I think that's one of the roles I would like to see more women step up and play, especially within the Republican Party. We do have some great female leaders, but I know there's many more out there.
Thank you so much, ladies, here for that. I think we're all agreeing here that we've got a lot to do to maintain our country and our freedoms. Our founding fathers in this country, we were an experiment, and we did well for a long time. Thomas Jefferson said that there would come a time we wouldn't be the people that we needed to be to maintain a democratic republic that we have. It's based on a well-informed and well-educated populace. We've been dumbing down our schools. Kids have been indoctrinated more than they're being taught. The story of George Washington with the bullet holes, I don't even know that story, maybe it was occurring in the French Revolution War. That story was taken out of history books in the 30s. Can you believe that? And political correctness doesn't care. This man was chosen of God. If you read this, you can't believe that. He had horses shot out from him, he had 4 bullet holes in his coat, flesh wounds and so on. And the Indian chief that had been shooting at him later on came back and said, you're protected by the Great Spirit. And you can be the leader of a great nation. There were several miracles that happened so I remember, like within the space of a month, there were water miracles that happened, and when Washington was stuck, I won't tell all of them, but Washington and his troops, his last troops, were stuck on Long Island. He was surrounded by the Brits, and that night he commandeered every single vessel he could possibly get, got as many men out as he could, but there was still about 1,000 left, and so the mist that usually rose from the water in the morning, every morning, did not that morning. Meteorological records show that mist stayed there. He continued to shove his people out until they were all safe. Where did that come from? We're a nation that was put in this position by God. We've been protected by God. And we need to get back to our guiding principles. We need to pray. You know the 2 Chronicles verse, like I said, what if my people will call on my name, humble themselves, and pray, seek my face, and turn from their ways, I will forgive and will heal their land. Our land is so sick in so many ways. We got our grid. We got so vulnerable. I mean, the grid, the borders, the economics. I mean, our kids are educated and they don't know what's going on. You go to Disney Waters World and they say the 3 ships of Columbus were the Lucky, but it's true. They said that. They said this. For my grandchildren, that's what got me in this campaign. I mean, I was all against it. I just got my husband back. He retired. I got my husband back. Man, we can go see a movie together. And I said, no, we have to do this because we never miss the faces of these children. And I missed a lot here for my grandchildren were going through when they were little because, we were on the trail. But every time I see a kid, who energizes me because, this is for them. So many of our kids, and people went before us, died so we can have what we have now. All of these opportunities that we've enjoyed, and we need to continue that legacy for our children, grandchildren, and their grandchildren. So if we're going to do that, we have to put someone in there who's going to look at things logically and not do things as they've been done in the past. We only have one choice.
Women want. Well, Miss Charlotte here is going to tell you about what's in your bag. Have you had a good time, ladies? Okay, I'm going to ask you one more time. I know we can get a lot louder than that. Have you had a good time, ladies? Well, on behalf of Dina, my mom, and myself, we just want to say thank you so much for being here. We hope that you did have a good time. And you do have a goodie bag. And in your goodie bag, we have 2 items that we really want you to use today or this week before you leave this beautiful place of Cleveland. One is a t-shirt. Dina's going to hold it up. And we would like for you to proudly wear that t-shirt at some point this week while you're here in Cleveland. And when people ask you what women want and what is that and who is Bass Public Affairs, you will proudly say there are 3 wonderful, phenomenal women and they just got great hospitality and had a really, really good time, right? The next thing and you should hire them. And you should hire them. The next thing that's in your bag is a coupon. And it's a coupon, it's a gift card actually, to Pour Cleveland Coffee. And we would like for you to take this coupon, this cup of coffee, and give it to a police officer or a protester today before you leave Cleveland. Okay? Yeah. So please make sure that you take that and you do that today, this week before you leave Cleveland. Okay? So make sure you give it to a protester or a police officer. It doesn't matter. They're both integral parts of this democracy, so make sure that somebody gets this coupon to use at Port Cleveland, okay? All right? Okay, and... Yes.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I have probably one of the most important roles. I'm a father of 3 teenage girls,
Okay.
and I was just interested in hearing what you have to say, what I can do as a father.
We do need a whole nother program for that. You know, yeah, I'm gonna put Will, who's a great father, on the spot. And let him answer that question.
Since I was raised, I'm an only child, I'll just pipe in real quick. My father and I are extremely close, and I think that the fact that he let me know that as a female I can achieve anything a male can. One of my favorite things he taught me was if you love what you do for a living, you'll never work a day in your life. And so he taught me to pursue my passion. So that is the number one thing I thank him for.
That's fantastic. But I think the best thing I can do for my daughter, first of all, is to be a model, a Christian man, and to give her someone to hopefully to aspire to as a husband and as a father for her children. I think that's very, very important. But also to point back to Penny and say that is who you should model your life after. Is someone who is trying to juggle, her certainly her faith, her personal life, her professional life, trying to make an impact in the country, and to make sure she feels empowered to do the same thing with her life, whether she wants to be a stay-at-home mom or whether she wants to be president. Whatever she wants to be, she can do that, and to do it in a way that honors God.
Thank you so much. And we just want to say once more, thank you. You are the best. We so appreciate you for doing this. And we have a little gift. You may notice that we wear dragonflies, and our logo is a dragonfly because we believe that dragonflies and butterflies are an added